The question that I wanted to ask was, as the solo dirtbag traveler, get up and go anytime, marriage now, what happened? I mean, I'm not saying that in a bad way, but how did you personally arrive at a point where you're like, okay, I think this is the next step?
It's a good question. And I wish there could be some sort of replicable lesson here, that if you just do this during a pandemic, you'll meet your soulmate. But I just, through dumb luck and a dating app, I met my person. I met my soulmate during the pandemic. It's funny. She's from Kansas. I'm from Kansas. I've sort of been searching for my Kansas girl on the other side of the world. And she was on the other side of the world. She was living in Europe when the pandemic happened. She came back to be close to her family. I was living close to my family. We were both sort of bored on a dating app one day. And it's like, wait a second, really? You're out there? And it just went from 0 to let's get married in no time flat. And so in a way, I met the right person and it was great. But I think just being open to that and realizing that was a thing. I think as a dirtbag traveler, and I've always been a proud dirtbag traveler, there's some compromises you make in life where you think, I am sort of sacrificing traditional love for an interesting life and for freedom and for flexibility and for the ability to be anywhere at any time. And then you meet this person, then you meet your person. It's like all those song lyrics that you sort of rolled your eyes at when in your 20s suddenly make sense. It's like, yeah, sure. Give me an old 60s Motown song about love. And that's what I'm experiencing with this person. And so it's great. It's the ability to experience something. And it's not like I fell in love for the first time, but experience that full-throated, full-hearted, all-in love when I was pushing 50 was fun to see. And there's almost a travel parallel in that sense, in that you're always seeking newness. And I think I sort of had a scab over my heart in a certain sense because travel was so rewarding and the freedom to travel was so rewarding that I didn't realize I could have it both. And then suddenly I met this person. It's like, oh. And I think when I proposed marriage, I used Walt Whitman's line, I give you my hand, I give you my love more precious than money. Will you come travel with me? Shall we stick together as long as we live? If I didn't quote that directly, I paraphrased it because it's like, yes, this is my person. Come travel with me and come stay here with me too. We have a good life here in Kansas as well. But it's interesting, and this probably doesn't happen to most people. I think a lot of people really get into the love mindset in that age that features romantic comedies, your 20s or whatever. But for some reason, I thought the price of an interesting life was not having traditional love relationship, and I was blown away to fall in love during the pandemic with my person. So
let's dig a bit further on that. You're an excellent writer, a man of words, a man of letters. How would you describe this experience? What was different? How were you different in responding to it? As you said, not your first time falling in love. And love can also be an umbrella term that covers a lot of different species of what we might call love. So what was different about you, about her, about the two of you? You've been exposed to a lot of things in a lot of places. So what was it?
I enjoyed being a bachelor back when I was one. And I've told my wife sometimes we should have met 10 years earlier. Like this 10 years would have been way more interesting if you would have been in it, right? And she's here, I'm not sure if we would have been ready. I'm not sure if I would have been ready for you and you for me. And so I think sometimes maybe I'm a person who just needed to grow a little bit, to be more open-hearted, to be ready to meet this person. And I'm suddenly this believer in fate. But I sort of needed to work through some things. I needed to travel some and just sort of get a sense to where I realized I needed that, that I wouldn't have lived a complete life. I needed my other half, I needed that full-throated, open-hearted love. And it sort of caught me by surprise. But now that I have it, it just doesn't make sense. It's like, what was I doing all those years before I met my wife? So does that answer your question?
I think it does. Yeah. I suppose I'm hearing you being more prepared on some level, even though perhaps it wasn't a conscious preparation for this, but having changed over time, become more open-hearted. You also, I would imagine, probably thought through what proposing and getting married would mean. I suppose if you have any other pieces of advice or suggestions for folks out there, maybe one who you're talking to, who is, I'd say getting to, if not having already passed the midpoint in life, who has not yet arrived there, right? What would you say?
I think that needs to be worked through. I think too many people in all societies, marry too soon because it's sort of expected, or they think it will complete them somehow. I think working through ambivalence or through uncertainty is an important thing. I had a concussion. I wrecked a motorcycle in Asia in 2019, and it led me into some post-concussive depression. And I think sometimes that experience, actually, I'm not sure how hardwired for depression I am. I'm sort of this reflexive optimist, but it also felt seasonal depression sometimes. And so it was probably always there, but just sort of working through, sort of having my head knocked in a little bit and being, sort of working through dealing with aloneness and sadness and realizing that being completely an island away from other people is not necessarily a desirable thing. And I don't think that depression necessarily is going to compel someone to just marry the next person who walks in the door. I think I was very lucky to meet someone who's very well suited to be with me, and I with her. But I think working through those, just realizing it's something you need. Like I think I realized I needed that kind of love before I met my wife. And when I met my wife, it's like, oh, well, there you are, right? And so I worry, my nightmare is that I may have met her 10 years earlier and not recognized the way that she completed my way of being in the world. And so I would say, don't be afraid of those negatives and the sadness and sort of trying, but be honest with yourself. I think sometimes maybe men have a problem with this more than women, is that self-sufficiency, trying to be completely self-contained and having freedom and not really having obligations to other people in life doesn't always yield happiness in a way that sort of yoking yourself to somebody else's life can. And so I can speak with expertise about travel, less so with love. I still feel like I was really blindsided by it. And again, very lucky to have experienced it in the full-throated way that I did. But I think just sort of working through it and realizing that complete independence and sort of being pinched off from other people in the world is not necessarily the best way to live.